Good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to have you all here. My name is Sarah Abbas, and my friends here over are Asrar Hassan and Eliswar, and our guest today is Shawn Patrick Tilling. Our guest today has years and years of experience under his belt. He has worked on Emmy-nominated VFX productions, as well as worked as a supervisor and director for CG productions under Disney and DreamWorks, and also worked as the head of the department in the Shanghai Vancouver Film School. However, we're not today to discuss all of that. We're here today to discuss his independent films, with his latest, Meet Cute, sweeping through, is it 84 festivals?
I think it's a little bit more now. I think it's in the Athens International Children's Festival just this week or sometime around here. But yes, a lot of festivals.
So they're adding up still.
Yes, still.
I'd love to see that film one day. With many nominations and awards and selections through these festivals worldwide, of course. So, yes. Starting off with our first question. Well, your works, all of them, your independent films, are very known for their optimistic nature. And, well, you called it the commonality of humanity. Do you think that working independently has given you the space to execute that vision more freely in comparison to working with mainstream studios?
I think so. So, I started my sort of artistic journey, as it were, as a young kid watching movies in my hometown of Northern Ontario. We didn't have much to do there. I went to see movies quite a lot, and it became my window to the world. So the idea of making films was always super attractive to me. And I remember going to see this really, really bad film. It was, I can't say it's a bad film, but it's not, it was a movie called Warlock, if I remember. And it was sort of a B grade science fiction fantasy type of film. And it was just on a Saturday afternoon. But before the film, they played Pixar's Luxo Jr., which was, some lamps with a beach ball. And for me, it was an amazing experience. I was working a little bit in computers. My parents bought me an earlier computer. I was doing some vector-based, plot graphic sort of things with Atari Basic, and I didn't know too much about computers, but I knew that this was done in computers. And the big thing for me was I saw that I didn't need a film crew, and I didn't need a massive budget. I didn't need to work with other people. I could use the technology to start telling my stories in my way by myself. And I also knew that it was at the very beginning of it. So the idea that I could learn and grow and develop my skills as the technology developed was really appealing. So at that moment, I was just like, this is what I want to do. My first productions, I did what most everyone does, is I looked at popular works around, and I asked myself what type of stories do I want to tell, and what do I want to do with the technology. And I was inspired by, I had one of my first short films was called Art. It was inspired by Jerry's Game, where we had an old man who was like setting up a chessboard. I had an older gentleman setting up a painting, a whole bunch of paints. But you can see that there was a direct sort of inspiration taken from there. And it wasn't until I was a little bit older that I started to see the commonality of humanity. And especially when I started traveling and meeting people from different places around the world, I really felt that we shared a lot in common. Hopes, dreams, and aspirations for the future. We laughed at the same sort of jokes. We, enjoyed the same foods, and pretty much we just lived similar lives. And for me, that really helped me inform how I approach my creativity in terms of 3D animation, uh, I really believe that if you can tell stories that people around the world can all appreciate, it does bring us together. And for me, you know, there's so many things that I enjoy that I want to express, but I always try to do it in a way that, again, it's not limited to a certain people, a certain place, or a certain time. So uh, that's sort of how I develop my sort of commonality of humanity approach to storytelling. Um, Being independent allows you to just have the freedom to express that. Um, and if you're working at a studio, you may not necessarily be doing the type of work that you would necessarily want to do, but that you're quite good at or maybe capable of doing. So, independent work, it's just freedom. Sometimes that freedom is a little bit challenging because, when you can do anything, it's hard to do something. So, as an artistic sort of pursuit. But to the answer to the question, yes, being an independent filmmaker definitely does give you much more freedom to express the things that you would like to express.
That is actually really interesting.
Besides working in a major studio and election, do you ever dream of pursuing your independent work full time? If so, what are the reasons for stopping you?
So, I think it's a dream of every artist to be able to live a comfortable life, uh, making enough money, having enough, uh, you know, uh, uh, financial security to just do what you want to do. For me, there's two challenges. To answer the first question, yes, of course, I'd love to just sit at home in my pajamas, eating good food, hyper focused on my own work.
Yes.
And to tell you the honest truth, I'm I'm not close to retirement, but I'm now in my early 50s, and it's getting closer. So my hope and dream on horizon is like 65. I can just retire, and then I can just focus, no problem at all. Um, and I probably could have become more independent earlier if I was more financially focused. My wonderful wife, she's a business person. We're completely different in our approaches to doing things. I'm an artist. I like to get lost in my work. I'm not really financially focused per se, which is a little bit of a limitation. I do believe that every artist should be a little bit more financially comfortable and have a bit of a plan. But uh, for me, the biggest reason why I don't become completely independent is skill acquisition. Okay? So if say if you're in your 20s and you come in and you start to do your content, your work, you're going to bubble yourself very quickly. You're going to be sort of, you'll look at other people, you'll start to, might go on your, a little bit of a journey. You might get your blue period or what have you, or you might be interested in, like Leonardo was interested in horses, for a long time, and you might have those sort of focuses. But for me, it was really important for myself to get the skills first to be able to express myself well. And for me, the best place to go and get skill is in industry. Because when you go into a studio and you have incredibly talented, incredibly experienced people all around you, and they are there to motivate and inspire you, you learn a tremendous amount of things. And by doing things that you necessarily do not want to do, you are exposed to different techniques, and you just don't know what you're going to learn that you may bring forward into your own work later on. So, you know, uh, I made a very conscious decision to put myself into studios to try to learn as much as I can, as fast as I can, and to take that to my own work. So that's why I go between production into my independent production, and then I also, of course, do education, which is sort of a hybrid. Um, in education, we always have to keep up with the newest technologies, the emerging technologies, which is happening quite a lot, and quite quickly, in order for us to be able to be able to, educate well. Um, and, you know, with emergent technologies, it always informs, how you approach your next work. It inspires you. You get, like, wow, this is great technology. What can I do with it?
Yeah.
So on and so forth. So uh, being in that is important. If you're just by yourself in a small home someplace off in the, in the desert, or, on a cliff by a beach, uh, you're not going to have that constant inspiration. You're not going to be exposed to different ideas and different artistic styles and different sort of progressive techniques. I think it's really important for a balance. In saying that, after 30 years in the industry, yeah, I could see myself, I've learned enough now. I've developed myself. I've found my voice. So I think I can actually go and sit down someplace quiet and focus on my own work. And I think I'd be happy for that.
So, given your extensive experience in both mainstream and independent animation, are there systemic barriers that still need to be addressed to foster more innovation for upcoming independent artists?
Systematic barriers. Oh, where can I start? You know, the I always like to tell people that I'm a systems person. I like to look at systems, understand systems. Once you understand what's sort of happening, you can be very effective and efficient within those systems. And if you come into a situation where you're not quite sure what's happening, then those are the situations where you get, you're not going to be effective or efficient with your solutions per se. And when I go into a studio environment, I understand, and everyone should understand, what are their outcomes? What are their expected outcomes? What are their motivations? Why are they doing what they're doing? And that will, give you an understanding of how you should sort of, relate to it. I've met a lot of artists who go into studio and become incredibly frustrated with, not doing what they want to do, and, working quite hard. My one when I was young was I would work very, very hard, hour upon hour, on doing like a beautiful animation, like a hand that goes against a glass, cover, and, an alien Hamdell for a Stargate or what have you. And he would put his hand up, and then as he goes down, his fingers would come towards, and there was just a beautiful little moment. And I'd be like, oh, I'm so happy with this. But then I have to show it to my supervisor, and then the supervisor, and they go, man, it's a little bit too slow. We only have, like, we have to compress that. We want to get to the cool alien fight shots or what have you. And I'm just like, no, it's a beautiful moment though. That's and then you have to compromise, and then you're like, oh, okay. Then as soon as you speed it up, it loses its sort of, the artistic essence of it. And at the end of the day, I would always say, well, this isn't my work, it's our work. When you're in a studio, you're in a group of people who are trying to achieve something. And you can't say, well, this is what I want to do, so this is how it should be done. Even directors, going back to the idea of sitting in that theater watching the Luxo Junior for the very first time, directors are beholden to producers. Directors themselves cannot make a film. They have to rely on the skills and the passion of others. They have to get great actors and great costume design and great makeup and great location scouts and, you know, great set production and so on and so forth. And it's art by committee. So when I'm working in a studio space with a group of people, I'm conscious that, what can I bring to this that can result in a positive outcome? And how can I work with people in a positive way so that we're all doing our very best? So I understand it as a system. Production wants to make profit at the end of the day. They have lots of people hired. Those people are there because they're being paid to get there. But it's not the only reason. Artists themselves are motivated by, the um, it's about doing the very best. Like when I'm in studio, I want to do my best, and if it takes effort and time, I'll do it because for me, it's my own personal reward. And the fact that I get paid for that is a wonderful thing. When I'm independent, I'm not getting paid for it. I'm only getting paid with uh, the uh, the reward of doing my own work in my own way. So that's how I approach sort of the sort of I'll focus on studio work, but for studio work. In saying that, there's lots of systematic barriers. Producers, it comes down to money and time. We have I forget what they're actually called, but we have like a three-circle diagram, and it has time, money, quality, and we pick two. So so there's always compromise within that system. Successful artists are going to go in, understand that, and then do what they can to thrive within that environment. And artists who go into those environments not understanding that generally become frustrated very quickly. And that's not a positive thing for them, working in a stressful environment and doing things that you hate doing, but you still have a love for the idea of doing it. That's not a very good feeling. So my suggestion for most people would be, understand what you're getting yourself into and try to work the best you can within that system so that you can get the most out of it while adding to it in the most positive way, and then taking what you've learned, as a reward for your efforts. Uh, and I'll end that answer there.
Well, this connects right back into the Venn diagram you just mentioned.
Oh, Venn diagram. That's what it was. Yes.
That Venn diagram is going to kick animators out of animation. The current landscape of the animation industry seems a little bit turbulent. And it seems that producers are choosing speed and money, and quality doesn't matter anymore. With the rise of AI, the animators guild going on strike. Do you really see AI taking its toll on the industry, or are we just scared and overreacting?
I think, like as I said before, I'm someone who sees sort of, again, I'm more systems oriented. So 3D animation is an industry based off of technology. Everything we do is technically based. We use software that's in constant development. When I first started doing 3D, we lit with what I'd call dumb lights that just, I'm not going to say photonic trace, but they light in a direction. There's no decay, there's no fall off, there's no bounce. And in order for us to try to mimic or try to integrate our 3D elements into a real world plate per se, we had to have a pretty decent understanding of the physics of light. I had to understand, okay, well, if there's a light here against a white wall, then there's going to be a bounce off of that. So I have to put another light behind the wall and make it go through the wall in order to actually gain that effect. And then along came IBLs, image-based lighting, and along came radiance rendering, where we're doing simulations based off of heat transfer, and we integrate that into our lighting models. And all of a sudden, I just put one light in a scene, and it has bounce, and it has decay, and it has color bleed. And all of a sudden, my scene it just looks beautiful, and I just had to put one light there and press a button. Oh, I'm not saying anything against that. Don't take that away from me, sort of deal. So, and I'm old enough to see a constant progression of these technologies. I think the concern with AI right now is it's not just our industry. Oh, that's good. It's not just in our industry but it's everywhere. AI is going to make a huge impact across every industry, full stop. Our industry, I feel strongly, is going to probably benefit from it more than others. Um, that's not to say that it's going to be a really hard transition. The challenge with AI right now is that its speed. It's happening very fast. Um, and as you said, a lot of producers are saying, hey, we don't need to hire 40 animators for this production. We may only have to do 10. So it's going to have a direct negative impact on a lot of animators' careers, and it's going to be very hard on a lot of people. Unfortunately, it's coming. There's no way to stop it. How we use it is within our preview. So I personally won't use AI in my work. I'm old enough now. And I've just spent 30 years of my life working quite long hours, developing the skills and the talents needed to tell my own stories in my own way. So I don't necessarily need to do it. There's elements of AI that I love. If you don't have the time, to go through 20 years of actual hard work and experience, but you still have something to say and you want to say it, AI is going to help you. So it will offer a lot of artists the ability to express their views and their stories more quickly and effectively than they would have done without it, per se. I like an AI in 3D to be kind of like bread, in a sense that we have mass production white loaf bread that you can go to the grocery store to buy, and it's good. You can just make some sandwiches for your children, or have a sandwich yourself. It's okay. But there'll always be space for artisan bread. There'll always be the bakery. There'll always be these boutique shops that are doing something that AI will not be able to do. AI right now is not very intelligent from an artificial standpoint. It is sort of, we're training it off of. Oh, cheers. We're training it. We're training it off of uh, pre-existing work. And we're going to hold this a little bit. We're getting feedback. So, AI is trained off of pre-existing work. And right now, a lot of the artists, a lot of the work that the AI is being trained off of is artists not giving permission for it. For me, that's a huge issue from my own personal, respect. Again, I want my work to be out for everyone. When I was younger, I posted my work on the internet. I didn't put in festivals, I just let it go. As soon as I finished a short film, it was just put out there and I moved on to the next. There's no greater gift from seeing your work appreciated from others and sort of adding it to the tapestry of our creative medium. My last short film, Meet Cute, I decided to put out into festivals. And if you put your work into festivals, you can't show it publicly. It has to be in festivals. Yes. And so it's sort of gated, like people have to wait for it. It's not publicly available. Up to a certain point. After the festival runs, if it does well, then you have some other opportunities after that fact. You can then try to, get remuneration by putting it into a streaming service or so on and so forth. But then again, it's not publicly available. I've always been the type of person who's like, oh, I love my stuff. I want to show it to people. So I have a lot of work that is publicly available. But now we have, these AI engines coming in, and they're being, informed by or trained off of, literally my work, simply because it's been scrubbed off the internet. If it's publicly available, it's sort of fair game. And I'm not a huge fan of that. Not because I want to maintain ownership over my work, but how should I put this? I think the process of the artistic pursuit is more important than the result of it. I really truly believe that, you know, I'll put it this way. A lot of young students will look at like a Pixar film or Spider-Man Beyond the Universe, and they'll see a really cool style, and that's what they want to do. They're going to start doing, they're going to start imagining their own work in that style, doing it that way. And when they're learning animation, they'll look at a great piece of Pixar animation, and they'll see, or they'll think, oh, that's what I want to do, and then they'll, I'm not going to say copy it, but mimic it. They'll get the same timing, the same sort of, expressions, the same holds, the so on and so forth. But Pixar doesn't do that. Pixar doesn't copy Pixar. Pixar goes through an sort of an artistic evolution or a development where they'll have a story and they'll design around that story. They'll design characters that will express what those characters are meant to express. And based off of those designs, they'll start to develop performance. And it's a product of the artists at Pixar going through this process. And you look at Miyazaki with his movies, with Studio Ghibli, he has his own way of expressing with his own characters and his own style. For me, that's the important aspect of being a 3D artist. To go through and be inspired by something and then go through the artistic process to develop it step by step by step until you achieve something that is very special. The problem with AI is that it skips all of that. And you just have an idea, and then you do a prompt, and then you hit enter, and the idea is fully realized. And you're not quite sure if it's good or not, so you'll just reprompt until you're like, oh, that's 90% what I was looking for. We're good to go. And for me, that's not really aspirational. It's not something that, like, when I do my work, I'm trying for the absolute perfection. I want it to be the very best I can possibly be. And every decision I'm making is fully informed by what I'm trying to achieve. And that's my biggest issue with AI, is that it's starting to become a little bit too easy to actually, get something that is specifically, distinct. That's where that, sort of the grocery store bread comes in. And the other thing is, because it's being trained off of all of these, other people's art, um, uh, for me, I can almost instantly tell it's AI. Because if you take a look at the original artist's art, there's a personal expression, like an accent that is there, and AR is just missing it. So for me, if you can tell an art instantly, if you can say, oh, that's AIR, then it's not good, you know. Anyway, so yeah, long and short of it, I'm old enough now where I'm not as fearful. I will not use AI art, or AI tools in my work. But I would say this, to be quite honest, I probably won't have too much of a choice because a lot of our 3D software is integrating AI algorithms into the actual software itself to try to expedite a lot of the stuff that may be a little bit difficult for artists to do. If I'm doing a roof and I have a whole bunch of tiles that I need to put in, but I want a little bit of offset for each one, a discoloration, I want a weathering that would happen naturally over time, which is something that we have to envision and then try to manually do. I could just say, weather this 15 years, northwest, America, climate. I can just, and it'll just weather it for me, and I'll be like, more, and let it. That's our future in our industry. We're going to be able to, direct our software, and our software will be able to do much more. And I'm not going to be the one who's like, no, I refuse to use it. I'm only going to use Maya 2024, and that's it for the rest of my life. I'm going to call it a day. Again, as I said, our industry embraces new technology. and it's just part of our process. But in saying that, you said Animation Guild is on strike. I fully support that 100%. I really do believe we should never have unfettered technology run amok. I think we do need limitations. We need to take a stop and say, how are we going to integrate this in a positive way into our industry so it has the least amount of negative impact as possible and the greatest amount of positive impact. So, I think it's every right that the actors and from the American strike, they were concerned about AI likeness being used for infinitely without them actually being remunerated. You have a lot of voice acting now that are being taken. You know, I don't know if you know too much about acting, but actors spend a tremendous amount of time and effort in enunciation and projection, in timing and pacing. An actor's job is to act, and it's a skill that they spend a tremendous amount of time and effort on. And when these AI models are trained on an actor's voice, where you can just, write in something and hit enter, and then it goes through thousands of hours of an actor's performance and then recreates it with whatever you want to say. Again, I can understand why the actors would be very, very against that. It's kind of like I put my passion and my time and effort into these performances, and it's just being taken. So again, for me, AI does need to be controlled. We need to slow down a little bit, and we need to understand it more. So yeah, negative and positive on both sides.
So, under the same situation that you're in, and shift towards independent animation with the new works and the studio gaining training, the traction. Do you see these changes in the animation space direction more animators towards indie works?
So yeah, that's an interesting question. Studios becoming more independent-ish,
Yes.
as it were, or do they support that? Well, studios have always, for me, like I look back at, like, say, Pixar, perfect example. Pixar always has short films. It was really creative short films. I said Lotso Jr., Red, there was Knick Knack, and they use these short films to develop the Pixar style. And when Pixar started to produce feature-length films like Toy Story, they understood that they're in it for the long game, and they need to support and develop talent within Pixar. So they continued the short films through that, and they used the studio and the long format films to finance the short films. And they used the short films to develop talent. They asked in studio, whoever has an idea, pitch it to us, and if it's good, we'll let you direct it. Studio Ghibli, same thing. One of my favorite anthologies of short films are the Ghiblis. They used to do it, I think, back in the 1990s or what have you. But it was just anybody working the studio could just do their short film in the studio and be supported by the studio to do that. So there has always been a core understanding that independent work from individual people who can express their own views are going to be a path forward to success. I take a look at, there was a Dumpling short film, I think, by, oh no, it's I can't remember, but there was a short film about dumplings that was really successful, beautiful. The wonderful artist, the woman who did it, went on to direct a full length feature film. So there's always been that. But on the other side of things, Pixar films are very Pixar films. There's a continuity to it, consistency to it, an approach to character, an approach to expression. Miyazaki films are very Miyazaki-like. Every studio has a very specific style that maybe was created by an individual, be it John Lasseter or Miyazaki or Chris Parks or what have you. But once it's sort of institutionalized within that studio, then that's the style that everyone sort of has to do. I see studios like Cartoon Saloon in Ireland, who does The Secret of the Kells, as a studio that I love. You know, they're doing their own thing in their own way. They're telling these traditional Irish stories, beautifully 2D sort of stylistic designs. The characterizations are just lovingly done. For me, that's a great modern studio. I haven't seen a Pixar film in a while. I'm actually looking forward to this new film came out, Wild Robot. I'm looking forward to that. I like robots, so I'm going to check it out. But I actually don't see a lot of studio short films or studio long format films too much anymore. I watch a lot of short animations. That's where a lot of the independent voices are. And for me, it's incredibly exciting all over the world. One of the big softwares that came out that really changed quite a lot over the last 5 years was Blender. Blender has been around since I started, but it wasn't that functional until recently, where it just exploded. And there's a tremendous amount of uh, 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 lessons and how-to videos that are available on the internet. And so, if you do nothing about 3D animation, if you just went onto the internet, you can start watching tutorials. And this is a free software that you can download and then you can just start using. And that had a huge impact or is having a huge impact on our industry from an independent level. Now people do not have to spend a tremendous amount of money. The software, the last generation of software is relatively difficult to use, to learn. It takes a long time to get comfortable with it. And now it's becoming better, easier, and people are doing more with it. Every time I watch a short film, I'm always inspired by it. Like regardless if it's a high quality or low quality, I just like to see independent voices. I like to see people doing things in different ways. For a long time in my industry, or from my perspective, I saw short animations and people just wanted to do, sort of a Pixar type film, Pixar type film, Pixar type film, Pixar type film. There was no range. But now I see 2D animation, 3D animation. There was a Chinese film just recently, The Deep Sea, which had like a lot of particle-based sort of stuff. There's just so many things that are so many different studios that are starting to do their own thing in their own way. It's really an amazing time for our industry. And it's only, I honestly believe it's only going to get better from here on out. So, and I'm excited for it.
Could you elaborate on the strategies you use to manage resources and budget for independent projects compared to major studio production? Specifically, how do you handle funding, allocate resources, and ensure cost efficiency in each sitting? What unique challenges do you face, and how do you overcome them?
That's the question. So I'm going to answer it in two ways. The question was, how do you support independent production? Sort of financially and technically, and what are the challenges therein? I do both, working with people, and I do my own independent work. For my own independent work, easy. The only budget I have is time. I just need time. If I can get time, I'm good. The challenge for independent, like total independent work, is motivation. How do you maintain motivation? And it's really challenging. So the way that I approach that is that I know myself. And I always tell my students and other fellow artists, the first thing you need to do before you get into independent production, if you're just going to do everything by yourself, is to know yourself. Know your tendencies. Some people get distracted easily. Some people work too hard for a short period of time. They'll do 12-hour days, 7 days a week for like a month. They'll just burn out. They don't need to take a break. Any type of disruption in the process is going to be problematic.
because the hardest thing for an artist to do is start. Once you're in, you're good. If you're busy, you're dealing with a challenge, you're going to be you're going to be focused, you're going to be involved. But it's just starting every day. It's like, oh, it's hard. The second hardest thing to do is finish something. To actually go in and get to the point where you can just say, okay, it's done. I'm going to move on to the next. For me, the way that I approach it is that I know my natural tendencies. I know that when I'm excited, I have tons of energy. I want to do it. I want to be involved. I'm going to be working hard. I'll do 16-hour days, 7 days a week, no problem. I'll happily, smile through all that because it's like I have this great idea. I'm going to do all the designs and storyboards and I'm going to put it all together. And this is, that excitement of creativity will fuel me through, for the first part. And my process is that I come up with an idea and I write a treatment. So I just write the entire story down like I'll tell it. So it's just like me telling the story. From there, I'll start to design each of the characters and the environments. Because I need to understand proportional size, scale, so on and so forth. Once I have those designs in play, I can then start looking at my thumbnails, which is a really quick storyboard. And then I just focus on cinematography, storytelling as a director. What shot do I want to start at? I always like going from black and transitioning into scene with light. So in a tiny scene, I had my character turn on the left, so it just has levels on black and also click, and then you're in the show. For just my current short film, one of them is called The Potion. It starts on black, and then a book is pulled up. You see through this little sliver, and the light comes in, and you see that we're actually behind a bookshelf, and the book is being pulled away from the camera, and we enter into the scene. So I focus on, each shot, how it flows, cutting on action. I'm very, hyper focused on the cinematography and storytelling through that medium. Once I finish that, then the challenge really begins. Because that process is relatively straightforward and simple. The challenge is when you start modeling. And if you start with modeling an environment, you're modeling a telephone and you're modeling say like a 1970s telephone, then you're modeling the little dial. It takes a long time. And you're modeling a cable, and you're modeling a plug, and you're modeling a floor, and you're modeling a chair, and it just is never ending, and you take a look at all your asset list, and you're like, yeah, this and this and this and this, and this is going to take forever. But it's really, it doesn't destroy your motivation. Even if you like modeling. But I know that if I can make it through that, then I can get to the characters. So I always start environments first. Because, and I know a lot of my friends who would go in and start on the characters, because that's the core essence of any short film. Who cares about a chair, who cares about the character and what they're doing. The problem with starting with characters is that if you get into the character work, number one, it's never going to be as good as if you left it to the end because the environment is going to give you, in myself, rhythm to model. So by a month into modeling, I'm going to be pretty good at modeling. So that's where I want to be the character. I want the character to be the best model I can be. So I'll leave that for the last. Number two, if you start with the character first, I'm so excited about writing and bringing it to life. And then I'm motivated to animate it. If then I have to stop to model an environment, if a month in, all of a sudden I've stepped away from the character. And then I have to come back to the character and I have to try to refine my motivation, that excitement. And for me, that's a huge disruption. And I've noticed that on my previous work, that's where I stopped working with short films for a long period of time. So nowadays, what I do is I do the idea, I do the treatment, I do the design, visual design, development, I do the thumbs, I do the storyboard, and then I go right into the environment modeling. I know that as soon as I get out of the environment modeling, I now have my set, okay, I can put that aside. Now it's all about character and performance. I can model the character, rate the character, texture the character, animate the character, and at that point, I'm going to get pretty tired. Animation takes a long time. For me, it takes a really long time because expression is, we're so acute to expression, how people express themselves. A subtle timing in a blink, between like two, is such a huge difference. So animation takes me time. It's the biggest amount of my time. But at the end of that, once I finally finish the animation, I'm happy with it. I'm so excited because the hardest part's done. It's just lighting and rendering. That's easy stuff. It's almost at the end of the process. So once I finish, I'm just like, okay, this is great. The only suffering I had to do was the environmental modeling stuff. But I like modeling, so it's not that much of a thing. But I know myself, so I know the rhythm. The hardest thing that people have to realize, especially younger people who try to do a short film by themselves, is that you're not going to be great at everything. You might be just great at something. But you have to do everything. And so you're going to be doing things that you will look back on and say, I hate this, I don't want people to see it, I'm going to stop. And my suggestion always to young artists is don't. Just accept that you have room to grow in certain things and that you can push through that. It is who you are, and just present that. And by finishing something, you'll learn from it and grow and develop. The only way to truly fail is to not try. And that for me is and I've seen so many friends. I have one of my friends who's a modeling supervisor at Disney. He had a lot of friends at Disney who would come up to him and say, I want to finish my film. Could you model a character for me? He's like, fantastic. And this happened like, I remember like, 16, 17 times where he was approached. People say, model this, model that, he's fantastic. Go in and his territory and model it. He wants that, he's supportive, and see his characters up on the screen. And he told me, not a single person ever finished a short film. Not a single one. And these are working professionals at Disney. These are people who are like, the best of the best of the best. And they still sell that. They still sell, they will take a look at their work and be like, what? It's taking too long, I can't do this. And, I was all the best thing best. So that's independent production. If you're doing it yourself, the main problem challenge you're going to face is yourself. 100% all the time. Okay? And as long as you have started to do that. On the other side of things, if I'm talking about commercial production where I'm working with a group of people, it always changes based off of the situation. Generally speaking, though, you do not have a lot of money. I look at like The Secret of the Shells with Cartoon Saloon. It's a Irish, French, Belgian co-production, I believe. That's not an easy film to make. When you're working with multiple, sources of support. The short films that I do, mostly I have an idea. I went and I pitched it to a producer. I gave them multiple options about, we can do this is a beautiful short film that is a birth of the city. This is a short film about these really cute, really charming, really fun characters that are interacting in really interesting ways. And here's a short about, a young girl overcoming adversity, but in a positive way. And then we'll sit and talk about, what are the pros and cons of each of these ideas? What are the commercial liability? Can we recruit somebody from here? One would be more suited to a television show. One is going to be like, a festival piece. And then one will be more of an internet-based, maybe short format sort of thing. And so we talk about, how we can approach it. Then the favorite one of all of us was one of them, but it wasn't the one that we decided to go with. Because for me, I never want to do something that you love for the first time. I always want to have a group of people together and see what we can do first. It's kind of like when I work with students in the school, They come in with their own ideas, and I said, that's wonderful, but we should not do that as our projects. We should come up with a work together so we can focus on learning first. And once you understand the process and you're comfortable with what to do and how to do it, then you can do your own work. If you don't do that, you're going to be passionate, you're going to hold on to it, you're not going to do the change that may need to be made, you're going to be stubborn, it's going to be a negative experience. And worst case scenario, it'll turn out poorly, and then your beautiful idea is just, it's the saddest thing, it really is. So I would say, don't do the best, keep the best for last of the world. And as an independent studio, you have to understand that your first project is probably not going to be your most successful project. It is a project that should come in, you should get your systems in play, your procedures, your production methodology, you should get to know your artists, you're going to be recruiting a whole new team, you're going to be working together for the very first time. A lot of them are going to be there for passion, because you probably won't be able to pay them that much per se. And you're going to develop your own style and your own unique voice for that studio. And so for me, I was like, hey, well, let's do I'm not going to say the least appealing of all the three stories, but let's do the one that's sort of easier. Like, a couple of characters, singular environment. Let's just do that one first. We can do the other ones later on if this is a successful team, if it's a successful studio. And so you manage your expectations before production. You don't go in and say, we're going to have the best video game in the entire, it's going to be amazing, we're going to get the top talent to come in, we're going to be the most successful studio, you just watch us. Because 9 times out of 10, it's going to go sideways at some point. It just won't work out. So be realistic about expectations, come in and, use your first sort of productions as really getting the studio up and ready as sort of a test project, as it were. And if it does become successful, woo, and if it doesn't, then you know that, you can say, okay, well, good thing we did these are, our best ideas on the first version. The challenges, again, you have producers. I'm always acting as a director, so I'm focused on the artistic vision. I take compromise because I give my character, I work with character designers. I have generally 4 people that I work with. They're all different styles. And so depending on the story, I have to kind of choose which artistic style is going to support that narrative the best. I said this before and I'll say it again. In filmmaking, we always go back to the script is the key. Like the script, if you have a great script, it's going to be a great movie, and that we should always go back to the script in order for us to know where we should go with our development. And for me, that never rang true because I worked in movie production, television production, and at the beginning, the scripts are all white. But every day that there's a change, they change the color of the pages in the script. So, on a Tuesday of shooting, you might have blue. And so you'll get new scripts of the actor will look, you just look for blue, that's going to be Tuesday, you see sequence change, and then you're prepared for that day. By the end of production, the scripts are rainbows. The entire script is no white anymore. It's all been changed. And the reason for it is that there's production overruns, the location may not work out, and the actor might have found a really wonderful way to express the character in a better way. The director is constantly thinking, looking at the dailies, saying, well, this is not working, we got to change, how we do it. There's so much stuff happening through that process that the scripts are, for me, they're the first physical realization of ideas. But the ideas themselves are the important aspect of production. And all you need to do is be true to the ideas, to the feelings you want to express, and just be free to make any changes that should be made to express those ideas. So I'm looking at, I work with multiple artists, we look at the story development, there's a certain tone, there's a certain characterization, there's a certain feeling that I want to express, and what I'm looking for in design are designs that will, support that. But sometimes I can have all the best, those areas in the world, and they can come and give me beautiful designs, but none of them work in context of what I'm feeling. And so there's always back and forth. And when you're working with a team of people, it's hard to find commitment. It is compromise. Now, the trick to it and the challenge is how much do you compromise? My first time doing this, I worked with an artist who was very well known for breakdance, DJ type of design. Big legs, big feet, small head, cool. And I, like small eyes wide apart, more of a European design sense. And I was directing the short film through a studio, and they said, "Oh, we're going to put our best designer with you. It's going to be amazing." And I said, "Oh, fantastic! This is going to be." And so we talked about designs, and he came back to me, and I was like, I don't like the look of any of these characters. I don't like big feet. I don't like that style of design. And so I was like, "Did you change it?" He was like, "Oh, this is." And so he started to change it, and he started to compromise, and was really, really bad about it. I was feeling bad about it because there's nothing that he could possibly do to hit where I wanted it to be. And so we're both sitting there, two, passionate people, and we're just like, this is a disaster. It's just terrible. What are we going to do? And finally, I just accepted I accepted a set of designs, and then I just kind of painted nudge to the modelers to try to fix the designs or change them into my liking. But at the end of the day, it was compromise. And so I just didn't feel good about that. So I walked away from that experience realizing that, you have to find people who support your vision, who are similar to what you want to do, who you enjoy working with, and who you can do well with. And I found, a few artists that I love working with, who I know I can trust to, work well with me. And that's wonderful. But that's a challenge. It's not something that's like, "Oh, hey, anybody like this type of art? Come work for me." It's not as easy as that. So sort of artistic compromise, and it happens in every aspect. It happens in design, it happens in modeling, it happens in animation, it happens in lighting, it happens in compositing at the end of the production. And at the end of the day, you're kind of like, well, as I said before, this project is not my project, it's our project. And as soon as you understand that, you can make an environment that's conducive to everyone's very best. There's going to be dozens of different personalities as well. When you're working by yourself, you only have yourself. Right? So if you're working with 15, 20 people, or 100 people, or 400 people, like a Pixar film would be, you're going to have lots of personalities. You're going to have lots of opinions. You're going to have lots of sort of fluctuations in the production process. And people will relate to stress and challenge in different ways, and you just have to try to manage that in the most positive way that you can. The last thing I'll say about this is that when I start a production, I always make sure to come in front of everyone, like say through my production team, and I try to communicate why we're doing this. It's not about the money, it's not about the accolades, it's not about the awards, it's about creating something beautiful that we can all be proud of. And I try to express the idea, I tell a story, I try to get everyone to get excited about it. And if they're excited about it, I know we're going to have a good production run. And if they're sitting there going, then I kind of know that this is not going to work out. So art by yourself versus art by committee. If you're doing it from a production standpoint, you're going to have lots of challenges, there.
Topic while we're talking. But this question is about grants because trying to interview for you Harrison. You did talk about burning out after looking for years in major studios. And you said that you feel a little bit drop just yes, that is my understanding.
Well, yeah, so, I'm always trying to be careful, what I say and how I say it, how I express it. But the reality is that artists are very easily taken advantage of because we approach things with passion and other people approach things in terms of problem. And what ends up happening is once you're in a studio space and they ask you if you could make it better, you're generally feeling is, yeah, I can, so I will. And all of a sudden you're working long hours, for little pay, and you're being taken advantage of. And there's lots of different studios, there's lots of different productions. It's just a natural, result of that because producers want the best they get too. And they're just going to have, they're not going to force you, they're not going to be like, you have to stay here or what have you. They're always going to come up and say, hey, could you? Yeah, and you're going to go, okay. And all of a sudden, you're just hating like for the next, month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. My perspective is a little bit different. I can only speak to my own personal experience. When I first started 30 years ago, visual effects production, that's where I started, was very new. There wasn't a lot of people who were skilled in it or experienced in it. So there wasn't a lot of us who could do the work that needed to be done. And I worked for a studio called Image Engine at the time. We did a lot of television production. And we wanted to be the best of the best of the best. That was our motivation. That was our inspiration. It was television production, so it wasn't a lot of money. But every single person, the owner, Robin was a compositor, he was an artist. The producer named Christopher was a lovely man. He wanted to be successful. Craig was our visual effects suit. He was really focused on perfection. I came in, I wanted to play the computer like a piano. I wanted to work hard. And we worked hard. We worked 12-hour days, 14-hour days, 16-hour days, 6 days a week, 7 days a week for months and months and months. There's another man named Brian. Me and him did a whole episode together, just the two of us, 100+ shots over multiple weeks. And for me, it was the best of times. I worked incredibly hard, but I learned so much. And even though I didn't, get remunerated for every single hour I worked, I got experience. And I achieved my goals from a personal standpoint. But there was a time, after about a year and a half of this, and again, getting nominated for Emmys and we're getting very successful, and it was an amazing time. But there was a point where I was going to go and sign another contract for another year, and then I asked myself, do I want to do the same things again? And for me, my focus was on my own personal development. And I don't want to repeat myself ad nauseum. I wanted to go and, okay, I've read this now, I'm comfortable with this, I want to go and do something else. And that's what I did. So that was my own personal motivation. And I tell my students that your first job, they're probably going to take advantage of it. Even the nicest companies in the world. If you're not doing it maliciously, it's just how production works. But that's okay because you're going to be paid with experience. You're going to be working with professionals who are going to motivate you and inspire you. Those environments offer so much. But there will always be a point where you'll have to stand up for yourself. Always. Going back to the idea of knowing yourself, what I did personally was I know that I will work long hours. And when I'm on task, I hate it all day. So before I say yes to a contract, if we're doing salary negotiations, they are going to be factored in an 8-hour day, 5 days a week. But in my mind, no, I am talking to them with the idea of them working at least 10-hour days, 6 days a week. because that's my natural tendency. And so when we finish negotiations, I will come out of it saying, okay, well, I'm happy for this amount of salary or this amount of remuneration based off of my projected, how much I'm going to be working on that project. So I'm always happy. I never get angry about that. I never feel like I'm being, sort of taken advantage of. Only because I know I'm going to be, that's who I am personally. There's other studios out there, though, and again, they tend not to last long periods of time because, if you start treating your artist in a negative way, you're not going to have the artist wanting to go there. There's going to be, sort of more business-oriented people, more, they're going to say, okay, let's just, do things quickly as you put the Venn diagram, quality, cost, and speed. They're going to go, cost speed all day, they don't care about quality. But, the thing is, there's some artists who actually enjoy that process. They're there because they want to work their team, they may actually like their actual content, it's not going to be bad for them. And there's some other people who, will be more resistant to it. Most of the artists that I know will always come to a point of burnout. You can't work long hours, day after day after day after day after day without coming to, even if you're not working that hard, at some point in your artistic journey, you're going to hit a wall. You're going to be like, I'm not motivated anymore. I've been doing this, but I've already done that. I don't really know what I want to do next. And, you're going to hit that. And it's something that every artist will have to kind of cope with in their own way. I always say that, just start doing something, even if you're not really interested in it, or if something is not like, you're not super excited about. You'll find your excitement as you go. I have never had a roadblock in my artistic career because I approach mine in a very systematic way. I always try to ask myself, what do I feel charming or feel interested in? My meet cute was about how it was my first romantic show. And how do I express romance? That first meeting. And I harken back to my own experiences as a child when I was watching Charlie Chaplin and Buster Keaton, and the charm and the sweetness and the kindness that was shown, through those performances. And that's what I brought, into that production. I worked. When I sit down, when I work personally, I work in cities, so I don't watch the clock. I just start in the morning, and then at some time when dawn starts to break, I go, oh, I might work 16 hours, 18 hours straight, and then I might sleep for a day and a half, and then, refine my energy. I'm fine with it because I know myself, I know, again, my own characteristics. But I can't force that on anyone else. If I'm correcting something, I'm just like, oh, can you come in? I'd be talking to an artist, and we might not have something finished by Friday. I'd be like, okay, well, we can pick that up Monday. And he's like, no, I have some time tomorrow. Great, I'll get you a muffin. It's for me, it's a gift when people give their time to me and production. But that's not always the case. When I'll track there a little bit, but I'll stop there.
Okay, I guess we reached the point there. No questions. Now it's time for the audience's questions. Anybody out there who would like to ask Mr. Tilling any questions? Any final tips for what would like to start their independent short film, create their
So the answer was, or the question was, is there any tips for anybody who wants to start their own independent short film? So, in my experience, most people, they'll have an idea, but ideas themselves are not actionable. When I go into development, I always start with the end of the story. That's the first thing that I think about because I want a point. I want it to resolve in a satisfying way. And then I go to the beginning to see where it starts. And then the middle fills itself. Because I know where I'm ending, I know where I'm beginning, where I go. If you just come in with an idea, like I remember there's a film, I don't know it, I don't even know, I don't know if this is the correct retelling it, but this is something I remember. There was a Canadian film about people who got the gift, the power to wish things away. And the whole movie is them just like, oh, I wish this wasn't this way, I wish this wasn't that way, and then it just disappeared from the earth. And at the end of the film, they're all just sitting there in a white space because they wish the whole world away. For me, that's not a really great result because there's no real point to it. It's just an idea. It's like, oh, wouldn't it be cool if people, have the ability, and then they just use it till the end. So, idea development number one. Think about what you want to do, and do a treatment or do a story development. Just make sure that you are not just starting with an idea, that you have an ending. It's a complete idea. It's a complete narrative from beginning to end. Because I see a lot of people start their shorts and they have a cool idea. I want to, a fight between two martial artists in the forest. It's going to be beautiful. And at the end, we're going to find out that they're siblings or something. All great. But for me, that's not. Like, why are the siblings fighting? Why, is it a powerful thing? Is it like, is it one of the siblings might have might get an illness, and there's some last chance for them to, have them, be at their very best before the decline. Where's the heart of the story? Make sure you have it, and make sure that you can realize it. Number one. And I'm saying this to a group of artists, and everyone has their own definition of art. I have a very distinct definition of art. My definition of art is emotion through medium, or expression through medium. So for me, I won't start anything unless I have an emotional form to do it. So that's number one. Number two, I guess is to know yourself. If you're someone who's like super, super excited about ideas, know that you're going to want to change your ideas constantly through production. So that's going to be a problem here. Once you have your idea, storyboarding. We're visual artists. We express things visually. So that's your first step. How are you going to lay this out? If it's a singular image, then what's your composition going to be? If it's a temporal area, what is your shot selections? What are the timing and music? Where are the cinematography of it? What the hell? It doesn't take that long, and at the end of that process, you'll actually know if you have a successful project or not, because you've expressed the entire idea. You're done. Now you just need to go into production, and you need to separate the creative process to the technical execution. I always bring up Monet. Monet would take holidays to you'll rent an apartment with a balcony overlooking the church. And you'll spend 2 weeks there painting the same church over and over and over and over and over. Ad nauseam, 20, 30 paintings of the same church, but in different lighting situations. He loved light. Absolutely loved it. That's what he painted. The church itself was just the reflection of that light, or how that light played on the surfaces. He repainted the same church 20 times in 2 weeks. But he did it. It took a lot of time, it took a lot of effort. We always say it's 10% inspiration, 90% perspiration. And that's generally what production is. Get your crew, make sure that you have a strong foundation, and then do a separation between the creative and the technical. Now, there's always going to be room for creativity and technical execution, because you're always going to come across problems that need, creative solutions. But don't change your mind halfway through because you're bored of working on this project. See it through to the end. And then the last thing I'll say is finish it. There is a tremendous amount of productions that people start and never finish. And for me, I always feel very sad for that. I consider my productions my children, to a greater degree. And it's like abandoned a child on the roadside. It's like, no, dude, it was such a good idea. You told me about it. It was so interesting. I was so excited to see it, to see it to the end. And then for whatever reason, it never ends. It's just an idea. And again, as I said, if you just have an idea, it's just not enough. You have to go through the process of realizing your idea. And then the last thing I see is this. However you think an idea, or whatever you think it's going to be, it won't. There is not an artistic creation in this whole world that ended like it started. Okay? So think of the artistic process as a journey. You're going to start at a certain point, and you're going to walk through production, and you're going to end up at a destination. And most of the time, you're going to be surprised at the result. Sometimes positively, sometimes favorably, but it will be surprising. But you need to walk that journey. So, just, again, there's a time for creativity, and there's a time for work. And without the work, creativity doesn't flourish. So, just keep that in mind as you approach whatever you're trying to do. Don't give up. Number one.
Do you think there's a mainstream trend towards smaller productions? Like when I think of Love Death and Robots, Godzilla, and smaller studios, less compromise, like your comparison with the Artists and Bread. Is it more in the mainstream? I would wish it wasn't.
I think there is. I think AI is going to have an influence on that as well. But also our media is changing. 20 years ago, you watched movies in the movie theater, you watched television shows on television, and you're looking at an hour and a half to 2 hours, but no longer than 2.5 hours for a movie, because they have to have at least 2 showings every night. It's financial, doing the movies to make money. So there's a time limit on the amount, time that you can put on there. And then you had television shows, either short format or longer format. So you had your miniseries, you had your multiple episodes, longer format narratives, so on and so forth. But nowadays, what you guys do, you go home and you watch TikToks, and you watch, 3-second videos, 4 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds. If you're forced to watch, I watched with my beautiful wife. I'm hopefully not going to say anything negative to her. But she falls asleep in about 15-20 minutes if she's not engaged in the content that she's watching. And so for me, just the newer generations have a little bit less of an attention span. When I was young, I was watching movies that were 3 hours long. And I was like, I couldn't get enough of them. I wanted them to go on forever. But nowadays, people are like, oh yeah, they want to watch it, they want to go to the next. The streaming wars have changed a huge amount, because now we have, how many shows came out this year? 1.5 billion? There's just so much media being created. So we want to get in quick, because there's the next show we want to watch, next show we want to watch. So that is all actually a very good, it's a positive for someone like me who does show up in their work, because now I have way more places to show that narrative. I don't have to, my work is not long enough to put on the screen, although film festivals is an avenue for that. But it's sort of it does really well within the show. Now, Netflix did Love, Death, Robots. It's an anthology. Most of those studios are actually video game studios or different production studios. that wanted to do more narrative-based work as a side project of their main sort of work. And Netflix offered a chance for them to go through the whole production. But a lot of the streaming services do not currently have ongoing anthologies of pre-made work that they can just use as showcase, and then they can get remunerated by. Meaning that Netflix acted as a producer for Love, Death, Robots. And so they push the money, they supported development, and it's very female. Where, like, when I finish a short film, well, I'll say this, when I finish, if I was a painter, and if I finished a group of paintings, I can then put it into a gallery, and depending on the interest, the excitement of that work, it could be published in a magazine, and it can then be online, and then you can start to make a name for yourself, and people will want to purchase those paintings, and your work has value, and then you can get income coming from that work to finance and support your work, and that's the life of an artist. One of the challenges that I've always had was that when I finish a short film, there's no direct path for remuneration. There's no place I can go and put my work and have people pay me for it. Like theater's too long for the television, they're looking for episodic stuff. And even now with the streaming services, they want to be co-producers with it. So if I'm producing my own, just out of fun, I have no invested cost. And maybe I can now get into streaming in terms of just hopefully put it on. Maybe I'll add it to a small anthology of the outstanding work of blah, blah, blah. Or maybe they'll use it as a, because you use a romantic film, I might be able to get into like a Valentine's Day, one day, celebration or what have you. But there's not a lot of avenues. When I heard about NFTs, I was really excited with the idea of, the idea is that digital artists who do not make practical medium can make their digital work one practical that then they can auction off and they can sell it like a painting would be sold. But it didn't work out, now it's just, I'm not going to get into that, but, from an artistic standpoint, it's not there. So there's not a lot of avenues for success. And I think that's one of the things that I'd love to change. And I think that's one thing that will change over time, is there's going to be more venues for people to showcase their work and for people to support that work as it shows. So long story short, yes, that's the way the industry is trending, and it's going to continue to trend. Is it perfect right now? No. There's definitely, in a lot of ways that can be improved. Will you be making a lot of money if you do a really cool short film? No, not forever. But it'll give you more opportunities. It'll give you more experience, and it'll, for me, it'll just make you a better artist. And if you're a better artist, you're going to have a better life. It'll just slowly, you'll go where you need to be. And if you're lucky enough to get into streaming, if you're lucky enough to get into some of these forums that will, show your work and elevate your work and will allow for remuneration, then that's a wonderful thing as well.
But do you think also that the audience is getting better? You know what I mean?
I'm torn on that. I honestly think that really good content is universally appealing. So, you can, I always talk about the universal commonality of people. If it's something that's going to be interesting, if something that's good, you can put it out there and everybody's going to appreciate it. Our audience getting more sophisticated or more advanced narratives or more subtle, more artistic things. Well, yes and no. We have the new Joker film that just is coming out now. They try to be a little more artistic, and most people are like, not really into that. I think the long answer is, or the short answer to me is, audiences definitely are getting more sophisticated because they're absorbing more content faster. So they're, when I was young, I watched 2 movies a day, 3 movies on the weekend, for years. That's it. Now I'm watching 1,000 different small mini productions by 1,000 different people in an hour. So that's going to inform your ability to say, I saw something better before, or whatever. So yes, audiences are getting more sophisticated, but I think again, audiences' attention spans are getting more limited at the same time. So we're getting smarter, but we're getting less patient.
Makes sense.
If I can have a show of hands here, who's an animator in the crowd? Animator? Anyone? Animator, we have a few. So one thing I'll say is I've been really focused on animation as my medium because that's what I work in. But I just wanted to express that a lot of the things that we're talking about today are really just generalized art theory as well. You don't apply to anything. If you have painting, if you have music, if you're an actor doing performance, if you're in theater, so on and so forth. They're all sort of applicable. I hope you've learned a little bit of something, or hope I can, express something that you found interesting. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for coming here, Mr. Salias. We're very happy to have you now. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone.